Hello, welcome to Melrose Votes 23 candidate question and answer period. My name is Teodros Kiros, professor of philosophy at Cambridge at Berklee College of Music and host of African Ascent International on MMTV. In this program, we're interviewing each of the candidates for mayor in the upcoming preliminary election. Each interview was conducted separately, but each candidate was asked the same range of questions in the same order, with the proviso that they limit their answers to 3 minutes or less. After all the interviews were complete, this program was edited to have each candidate's answer to the question grouped together. None of the responses have been edited. With all that said, let me give my guest, a potential mayor for the great city of Melrose, to introduce herself. In this program, we're interviewing each of the candidates for mayor in the upcoming preliminary election. Each interview was conducted separately, but each candidate was asked the same range of questions in the same order, with the proviso that they limit their answers to 3 minutes or less. After all the interviews were complete, this program was edited to have each candidate's answer to the question grouped together. None of the responses have been edited. With all that said, let me give my guest, a potential mayor for the great city of Melrose, to introduce herself.
Thank you, Teodros, and thank you to MMTV for this opportunity to speak. My name is Jen Grigoraitis, and I am running to be mayor of the great city of Melrose. I live with my husband, Bill, over on Lebanon Street, and our 2 boys, one of whom just started high school last week at Melrose High School, and one who is in 4th grade at the Winthrop School, along with our dog, Clementine. For the past 4 years, I've served on the City Council representing Ward 6, which includes downtown up through Mount Hood. And in both 2020 and 2023, I've served as the City Council President. When I'm not serving on the council, I work for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where I've been the Chief of Staff for the Massachusetts Office for Victim Assistance since 2007. And in that role, I manage a staff of 30 and a budget of $60 million a year. I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, let's begin the interview. In your opinion, what are the biggest problems facing Melrose right now? And after you identify them, how do you intend to deal with them?
Great question. So I think I want to talk about them in terms of opportunities, and I think we have 3 critical things that we need to be thinking about as a community. The first is budget, and the reality is that money is the foundation for delivering services in our community, whether that's our schools, our senior center, our trash pickup, filling potholes, or thinking about bigger issues like investing in our buildings. So I think one thing that we need to do and do every day all the time is talk about the budget. We need to be talking about that in the immediate term in terms of what do we want to see in the budget for next year, for 3 years out, 5 years out, and 10 years out. We need to be thinking about the financial future of this community and where we want to invest and where we want to grow. And I think I bring skills that allow me to do that from day one in the mayor's office. The second thing I want to talk about is strategic planning. I think going hand in hand with talking about money is talking about where is it that this community wants to take itself, and then how are we going to get there, and how is city government going to tell residents what we've accomplished, where we're going next, and whether or not things are working. And I think that's about a citywide strategic plan that, again, looks at where do we want to be next year, where do we want to be in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And that should include all of our city services, whether it's schools or seniors or housing or streets or parks. And I believe I bring experience in how to do that, given my professional background. And the third thing is infrastructure. This is a beautiful community. We have many historic buildings, and we need to think about how we invest in those buildings to make sure that they're meeting the needs of everyone in our community, and that they're ready to go as we face a shifting climate, that those buildings can meet those needs for all residents.
Now, in your vision, what would you like Melrose to be 20 years from now?
I would like Melrose to be 20 years from now the great community that it is, but made even better. I think Melrose's greatest strength is the fact that it is a community of people. We are 95% residential, and I think we often talk about that as it relates to taxes, but really what that means is that this is a place people come to live, to raise their families, to spend their lives because of the people. And so what I would like Melrose to be is a community where everyone feels that they can be throughout their lifetime. That means whether you're 2 years old and getting ready to enter the ECC and start your educational journey with us, or if you're 102 years old and you want to remain in the community where you've been your whole life, I want to plan for a community that can meet the needs of everyone.
Excellent. Now, as you know, there has been a lot of social media chatter, as it were, about the new apartment buildings that are being contemplated around Melrose right now, especially as they relate to parking, height, and decreased views, not to say increased congestion. What is your opinion about them? What do you think about these plans?
So we need to talk about development in the context of state law, where we have some very real obligations and responsibilities to increase our housing stock. We live in one of the most expensive parts of the country, and that has created a reality of insufficient housing at all income levels and a very expensive place for people to build new housing. And the state has passed laws that are requiring communities to address that by building housing along the rail corridor. Melrose is really fortunate to have 3 commuter rail stops and MBTA buses that serve us, and therefore we have an obligation to provide housing opportunities for residents across their lifespan along the rail corridor. We need to keep that rail corridor thriving. We need people who are using the MBTA so that the MBTA continues to serve us and hopefully provides better services. So we need to be really strategically and intentionally looking at development as a way to ensure we have housing for residents across their lifespan, particularly folks who are not yet able to afford a single family home, choose not to afford a single family home, 30% of our community rents, or are at the point in their life where they no longer can or want a single family home. And so we need to think about housing across the lifespan. We also need to be proactive about building the housing that we want to see here. The state has a law that requires us to have 10% of our housing stock be affordable. We have not yet met that requirement as a community. And so until we do that, we run the risk of having some of the decisions that get made about housing being made without us in the mix. So I think we need to be intentional, proactive, and thoughtful, and partnering with developers that we know are going to bring the kind of projects that we want to see to best serve the needs of our community here.
Okay. I would like you to pledge to the community that as you do so, as a potential mayor, you're going to be particularly vigilant about affordability. This is not merely going to be another method of accommodating the rich and powerful, but that it will have to take into account the needs of human beings who cannot afford to buy any of these intended projects. Pledge to the city that you're going to see to it that this is also going to take into account the needs of those with very little means, but who would like to live in Melrose.
Absolutely, and I think affordability, one important prong of that is housing, and I think we even need to have a conversation as a community about what that word means. The reality for Melrose is that a 1-bedroom apartment that's being listed at $2,000 a month is considered affordable. So we definitely need to think about the spectrum of economic needs across our community and how we can help them with the levers that are available to us. I think that includes rethinking some of our current tax discounts for our older residents and those in lower incomes. And I've been working with DPW and the Council on Aging, in particular on looking at the water and sewer rate discount for our older residents and how we can expand that. I also think it's about leveraging our partners at the State House and in state government to continue to advocate for increased tax relief for older residents through what's called the Senior Tax Circuit Breaker. I was really proud to be one of the councilors who voted in support of Melrose creating its own local tax relief for seniors. We're one of maybe a dozen communities in the state that offers that program. And I will continue to advocate at the state level for increased tax relief for our seniors, which I know is being supported by both Senator Lewis and Rep. Lippert-Garabedian. So I think there's a lot of ways we can do that, and it's really about partnering with residents and with our partners at the state level to make positive change.
Okay. Now, there have been different models of leadership. What is your particular model of leadership going to look like? What kind of mayor do you envision to be? How accessible are you going to be? How kind are you going to be? How honest are you going to be? Because citizens across the country are sick and tired of politicians who make promises but never fulfill them. I would like you to be a mayor who's going to be honest.
So I've spent my entire career, the past 20 years, in public service to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, first working for the Attorney General's office and then more recently working for the Massachusetts Office for Victim Assistance, where I've worked every day with people who have experienced some pretty hard things in their life and have been victims and survivors of crime. I believe leadership is about integrity, it is about inclusivity, it is about listening to understand and recognizing that you and I may disagree, but that doesn't mean that we can't both want great things for our community. I think it is about being accessible to everyone. That includes residents, that includes all of our staff, from department heads to folks who are working for us as interns, and to being accessible to our partners at the state and federal level. We need to be open to everyone who wants to help us make this great community the best that it can be. And I think it is about communication. One thing that I pledge to do as mayor is to provide a weekly column to the local newspaper, providing an update on what is happening in City Hall. And I would also hope to partner with MMTV to provide a weekly program with updates on what's happening at City Hall for our MMTV public. This is a huge resource for our community. I think we need to be engaging with people across mediums, print, social media, city website, and local TV so that we can keep our residents informed about what's happening and how they can weigh in when decisions are getting made.
Okay. City Hall, as it is currently stylized, is a very cold place. I don't particularly like going to City Hall. I feel unwelcome. How are you going to change this? What are certain modalities of leadership that you're going to institute to make City Hall warm, attractive, and welcoming? Briefly.
Well, first I want to say I'm sorry to hear that you haven't felt welcome in your city. Everyone should feel welcome in City Hall and in the city in general. I think that there's a lot that we can do to make City Hall a more welcoming place. I think part of that comes from acknowledging where we are not getting it done for residents and hearing and really listening to them in a way that is safe and trauma-informed for them to provide us with information about what we can do better. I think on a broader scale, we need to provide training for all city staff on how to meet the needs of a diverse population. This includes understanding the Americans with Disabilities Act and the way in which we need to make sure that all public events and meetings are accessible to those who need additional support. It's in doing things like accessing the language line, which is a state resource available through state contracts so that we have the ability to provide translation in over 30 languages to any resident who needs it. And it's about ensuring that city staff feel supported when by the mayor when they engage with residents to help solve problems, that we are all working together to deliver an outcome in a way that feels inclusive, effective, and solutions-oriented for residents.
Now, what will be your expectations as to how the different city departments interact with citizens and businesses? As you know, small businesses are increasingly closing down and leaving. How are you going to change that? How are we going to make Main Street business open?
So we absolutely want a thriving local business community on Main Street and in all of our business areas across the city. And that's something that I've really tried to work hard on as a city councilor, where I've represented the bulk of Main Street in my ward. We need to be partnering with the Chamber of Commerce as a representative of those businesses and having an open door policy with the Chamber. One thing I would like to put in place is regular meetings with Chamber leadership and city department heads so that we can holistically and proactively talk about city services and how they can most benefit our businesses. That's everything from trash pickup to street closures to traffic and parking, and feeling like those conversations are happening regularly and in partnership. I also believe we need to be constantly looking at our city ordinances to figure out how we can make opening and maintaining a business in Melrose easy and accessible to everyone. I would like to create a small business toolkit so that when anyone wants to open a business in Melrose, they are able to find on the city website information and forms that they need and a clear process for how they go about getting the necessary permits. We've also added recently through ARPA funding a director of economic recovery and development. I think that's a key position for the city of Melrose to have. The funding for that runs out in December of 2024. I will pledge to put funding for that position in the budget for the next year so that we can, one, continue to maintain that position, and two, slowly transition the funding for that position from grant funding that will be ending to city funds in a way that gives us the ability to step up that cost so that the city can absorb it over 2 budget cycles.
Excellent. All right. What will be your, let me put it this way, do you think Melrose is sufficiently diverse?
I think any community can be more diverse, and I think there's a lot of ways to define that word. I think we want to be a community that is open to everyone, and that is whether you've lived here for 4 days, 4 years, or 4 generations. We want people to feel that this is their home. Again, Melrose's strength is on being a residential community, and we want to make sure that we are a place that is welcoming to everyone.
Okay. In that case, would you support then creating an Office of Diversity and Inclusion and fund it properly?
I would absolutely support that. I think we'd have to look at what is the funding source for that. I think we have to first, before we create that, provide training across all city departments for city staff on both addressing implicit bias and how to provide services in an inclusive, accessible, and equitable way. I think we need to build buy-in amongst city staff to recognize that they're serving an increasingly diverse population and have them feel supported in doing that. I think we need to engage the community, particularly residents of color or other marginalized groups, in those conversations in a way that feels safe for them. And I think we need to do a complete equity audit of Melrose policies and procedures to think about when folks engage with City Hall, are we providing them with access to forms and services that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive? And that includes everything from our human resources policies, which impact all of our city hiring, including our schools, our procurement policies for all of the goods and services that we buy as a city, and our bidding processes for when we put large construction contracts out to bid. So I think there's some foundational steps that we need to take in order for an Office of Diversity and Inclusion to be successful in this community, and I'm ready to take those steps.
Correct, but that's very different from pledging to open an actual office with an expert to be running the show.
That
or
is
else it's merely going to be words. I've heard this so many times. I've been working at universities all my life. You actually need to pledge and have an office that is going to deal with diversity. How would you fund that?
So I think funding an office that deals with diversity would either need to come from the budget or to come from outside funding sources.
Correct.
One thing that I would like to do right away with existing ARPA money that the city still has is to hire a full-time grant writer.
Correct.
That position would enable the city to, one, remove some of that burden for seeking out grants from department heads and free up department head times, and hopefully allow us to go after other funding sources. I think building an Office of Diversity and Inclusion really requires a multi-layered DEI strategic plan, which is something that I engaged in with my employer. And in order for that to be successful, we need to have the buy-in of residents, of city employees, and of city leadership. And so I think the very first step that I would pledge right now is to work very hard to get that buy-in so that we don't just create that office, but that it's successful and thriving.
Good. Very good. Okay. What will be your guiding philosophy as to how, when citizens can help with any aspect of what is needed to make Melrose a very attractive place?
So I think Melrose has a long and rich history of civic engagement. It is one of the many things that I love about this community. We have an incredibly active group of residents who donate so much of their time to volunteer both for causes within various nonprofits in the schools and the community and for city government, including our boards and commissions. Many folks do that without being paid for it, and we need to really appreciate and uplift those who are so giving of their time and continue to encourage people to be involved. Our boards and commissions play critical roles in developing policy, practices, and regulations for various parts of the city, and we need to continue to encourage residents to be a part of that and support them in order to be successful in doing it.
Good. In your view, what is the mayor's role on the school committee?
So the mayor is a member of the school committee and is one of the votes on that body. I believe the mayor is there, as they are in their role all the time, to represent all of the residents of Melrose. And that includes our school children, who need to be the center in all of the decisions we make about education, their parents, and then also to be thinking about our employees, who are employees of the city of Melrose, including our school teachers. So I think the mayor is there to be thinking on behalf of those three groups, to be advocating for them, and to also be thinking about how do we deliver the best education for all students in our community with the resources that we have available, and how do we leverage our partnerships at the state and federal level to bring in more resources so we can best serve every child.
There is a rumor, and I don't know how justified this is, that the middle school is rather chaotic. Why is that? Why should it be chaotic in such a great community?
So my son is in 9th grade, so he just finished up 3 years in the middle school, including 6th grade when he was the hybrid year for COVID. I think the middle school is absolutely a building where we need to be investing in resources and our energy. It is a challenging age to be dealing with prepubescence. I think we also have to be looking at the impact of social media on what is happening for our students both in and out of the classroom and how that impacts their ability to learn. And I really think for all of our students, we need to be thinking about the ongoing impacts of the pandemic. We know that whether you were in 2nd grade or 12th grade, there were impacts from remote learning, from less access to your peers, from less access to your teachers, and we really need to prepare a school district that is ready to address that across the spectrum of a student's learning. So I think those are things we need to focus on, and we particularly need to put energy into the middle school.
Good. Excellent. Now, let's talk about the proposed public safety buildings. Yesterday, the City Council approved putting the debt exclusion on the ballot this fall. You are aware of that. Do you support the debt exclusion?
I do. I was one of the city councilors last night who voted to put that on the ballot. So assuming the mayor approves that measure, that will be a question that is before the public on the ballot in November. And this is an opportunity to renovate/rebuild all 4 of our public safety buildings, which would be the largest investment Melrose has made in its public safety infrastructure in probably 100 years.
Okay. And finally, what do you think distinguishes you from the other candidates, truthfully? What do you think is unique about you? What are some of your special gifts as a politician and as a human being?
Oh, thank you. So I believe I bring a combination of passion, of dedication to public service, which is what I have spent my entire professional career doing, and demonstrated experience. So I love this community. When my husband and I bought our house in 2012, we felt like we had won the lottery to find this place and to have the privilege of being able to raise our family here. I feel so lucky that I get to give my children a childhood in this community. I have spent all of my career in government, and I have seen firsthand that government can and should work for everyone. And I believe in that. I believe in the power of public service to make people's lives better. And I've done it. I have delivered on that, both as a city councilor, as city council president, leading through the first global pandemic, and as a professional with executive management experience of over 15 years. I know how to partner, I know how to lead, I know how to make decisions, I know how to hold myself and others accountable, I know how to deliver results, and that's what I want to do for this community. I really believe that public service is an inherently optimistic endeavor. I don't think anyone gets into this to get famous or to get rich. I really want the opportunity to deliver on behalf of this community. This is about every single resident in this town and what it is that they want to see for their future, and I want to help bring that to life.
Okay, it was a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts?
I'm so appreciative of the opportunity. I do want to thank MMTV for all that they do for our community, particularly during the pandemic when they offered access to so many critical government meetings, and I really hope I have the opportunity to deliver for the city in the next 4 years.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.